Hey kids, yeah, where do I even start with this one? First and foremost, damn. Let's just say I was not expecting that last one to do as nearly as well as it did, but nevertheless, I cannot thank y'all enough for showing out like it did. Really, it does mean a lot. And as much as I would love to get all sentimental about it, like, this video's taken long enough to make, so yeah, let's get a move on. But genuinely, thank y'all, it really does help out a lot. So, as much as I would love to do the MHA video sometime soon, I got a lot to say, and writing it has taken me way longer than I expected, so consider this video as a bit of a proof of concept for now. Yeah, what can I say? A bitch has been going through it, and it turns out my DMs had hands and I needed some time off, but don't worry, we're back in it now. And while this ain't exactly a Halloween special I wanted to upload this year, at least I got more time to keep cooking. Anywho, as y'all have probably gathered by now, especially considering the topic of my last video, I'm a bit of a fucking weeb. I know, big shocking. You see, way back in the day, somewhere between the ages of, I don't know, 3 to 5, my aunt decided to put me on Sailor Moon, and little did she know at the time, that decision would go on to irreparably alter my brain chemistry. Was it for the better? Was it for the worse? Hell if I know, but hey, I'm here now. That's gotta count for something, right? Granted, looking back, I probably would have been better off not learning what gender envy was until later, but hey, it would have happened eventually. The point being, I was doomed ever since day one. But not only that, unlike most, rather than being introduced to anime through Shonen, I have shoujo to thank for my acute case of chronic bitch dependency. Not only that, but you gotta keep in mind that Toonami was on its way out right as it got the ability to form coherent thoughts, so I didn't have a proper reference as to what the hell a shonen even was until Nicktoons got the Revenge of Dragon Ball Z Kai. For that, the closest things I had to an actual anime were things like Pokemon, Bakugan, and Beyblade Metal Masters and Metal Fusion. And like, I'm 90% sure those don't even classify as shonen, so all that begs the question. What the hell even is a shonen? Basically, in anime and manga, the word shonen is less of an actual genre, but more so a term used to describe any story written to primarily appeal to an adolescent teenage male audience, as opposed to shoujo, which does the exact same thing but with adolescent teenage girls, and seinen, which does, you guessed it, the exact same thing, but you guessed it, instead of being geared towards children, it's more geared towards adults. One Piece, shonen. Dragon Ball, shonen. Bleach, shonen.
This
Naruto,
nigga is
shonen.
a
My
fucking
Hero,
monster!
shonen. Chainsaw Man. Well, you see, despite the intense gore and mature themes present, its target demographic is still teenagers, and not to mention it's published in Jump Plus, so you guessed it, it's a shonen. The thing is with terms like shonen, shoujo, and seinen is that they're all kind of nebulous because they're not genres in the traditional sense that the names have anything to do with the themes of their stories, but instead, the terms are only used to refer to the primary demographic that they intend to appeal to. Even so, when you hear the name shonen, your mind probably jumps to a handful of tropes and character attributes commonly found throughout the genre. Edgy rival characters, the power of friendship, and the sheer force of will, long ass training montages, last second power ups, screaming while fighting, and tragic backstories, and of course, the ever popular tournament arc. More often than not, shonen anime and manga include these tropes because, well, young boys and teenagers, by and large, love them some violence. Sure, I might not be a guy anymore, but like, come on. There's a reason why so many shonens put so much emphasis on having good fight choreography. You gotta keep the kids entertained somehow. Like I have said countless times in my previous videos, fight scenes are a great way to look to a character's thought process while under pressure, and under the right circumstances, a good fight scene can serve its own self contained narrative. But in order to achieve that, you also need some kind of grasp on how the character works. Now, I'm not saying you need 15 pages of backstory and encyclopedic knowledge of how your setting works for a fight scene to make sense, but at the very least, your audience needs to be able to understand the basics of what's going on. As fun as dissecting the work of an author in order to pick apart a story's themes and how they impact the plot is, I can't lie, violence is just fucking awesome. Now, I can go on and on about senseless violence as a topic and whether or not in stories senseless violence is a thing, but at the end of the day, it all comes back around to one thing: hype. Now, hype is a concept that's hard to properly articulate, but if I had to take a crack at it, I'd say it's that primal feeling of investment and excitement you feel when something just goes right. Whether that's something be someone getting the bigs beaten off of them or someone coming back after getting the bigs beaten off of them. And one could argue that if something in the story happens to build hype, regardless of what that thing may be, that decision wasn't made pointlessly, it was instead made to build interest in something in the future. Is there such a thing as senseless violence if it serves a greater narrative? How much of an investment in that violence is actually just an investment in the characters? And how much of that is just a simple enjoyment of fight scenes? I have no idea, but hey, all that does beg the question: how do you shonen? If all shonen does is dictate the target demographic of an anime and manga, why do we so heavily associate the term with the battle subgenre besides obvious reasons like popularity and cultural impact? In order to answer that question, we're gonna have to take into consideration the reason why shonen is called shonen to begin with. The target demographic, young boys and teenagers. Now, let's be real here for a second. Not a single person in their right mind looks back on their middle school years fondly. I mean, why else do you think all the good coming of age stories go to high school instead? It's a very confusing and messy time for everyone, meaning that of all the times people would meet guidance throughout their life, adolescence is pretty high up there as one of the most important. And as unfortunate as it may be, not everyone has that luxury. Now, I'm not saying that shonen battle anime or anything else of the sort is a proper substitute for actual role models. What I am saying is that when it's all you got, there are very much worse things you could be getting into. Anime and manga, and by extension comics and animation as a whole, are rather underrated in terms of their effectiveness as creative mediums, often being seen as less sophisticated or mature than other ones such as film and literature. But considering that adolescence is among one of the most formative periods of a person's life, it makes sense why the battle subgenre is so popular amongst shonen anime and manga. That is to say, as much as I and everyone else on the planet love a good cohesive plot, kids aren't exactly known for having the best taste. So what do you do when you want the youngers to pay attention to what you actually have to tell them? You make things easier. Like I said earlier, I love violence. Back in middle school, I practically lived and breathed watching sick figures beat the fuck out of each other, and I probably would have had a stroke if someone put me on King of the Shiver back then. The reason why shonen battle anime is so popular even outside of its target demographic isn't just a simple matter of popularity and cultural impact, although those do help a ton, but also its unique ability to portray deep themes and complex messages in a way that makes it appealing for a younger audience. It's the same reason why people keep going back to shows like Steven Universe, Adventure Time, and Gravity Falls. Sure, on a technical level, they're all kid shows, but at the same time, there is enough substance there to keep it enjoyable, even after you supposedly go out the target demographic. And like all stories, a lot of that depth is owed to their cast. The cast typically being the primary means a story uses to deliver its themes and messages through. In particular, shonen anime and manga excel in this regard. When you hear the term shonen anime protagonist, you probably already have a few common archetypes in your head. You got your loud, confident types that are typically seen as kinda dumb but actually more intelligent than they let on. You got your stoic, delinquent badasses that can sometimes come off as rude or standoffish, but have a strong sense of justice, and don't stop at nothing to protect the things they care about. And finally, you have your soft-hearted idealists that won't hesitate to put their hands on somebody after realizing that the power of friendship just don't work on some people. Like I said the last time around, well, it may be everyone's favorite punching bag these days. All things considered, My Hero Academia's cast is hella underrated, especially the main man himself, Izuku Midoriya, aka Deku. If you're a weeb and you've had a pulse within the past decade or so, or hell, at the very least watch my last vid, you are likely well aware of her favorite green-haired crybaby's backstory, so I'll save that for the actual My Hero retrospective video. But what I will say in regards to his backstory, Midoriya is a prime example of basic not necessarily being bad. Midoriya was not only born quirkless in society where the powers you're born with can make or break your value as a person, but the revelation of him being born quirkless would shatter the hopes and dreams of any preschooler that wanted to become a superhero. And while Midoriya was devastated, he held out hope that somehow he'd get to be one. Yeah, sure. All Might will come around and fix that eventually, but beforehand, he had no way of knowing such an encounter would even happen. Throughout the majority of his life, Deku had studied countless heroes in their quirks and the application of those quirks, hoping that somehow, some way, that knowledge would help him in the UA. Logic be damned. Why is that? You see, throughout all of MHA, we see a lot of the common shonen anime themes. Having faith in yourself and your dreams despite the uncertainty of the future, pushing past your limits to become the best version of yourself, people being products of their environment, yada yada yada. But above all else, one of the core values of My Hero is a dissection of what it means to be a hero, both in a more literal sense, what with the commentary on systemic injustice and the nature of society who judges people based upon qualities they can't control and the consequences of that. But in a more figurative sense, My Hero also explores what it means to bring out the best in yourself in the name of uplifting others, while also paying a tribute to the people who made you while still being your own person. For all intents and purposes, Midoriya is a classic protagonist that started from the bottom but happened his way into great power, but the beautiful thing is there's more to him than that. Like I said in my last video, Midoriya is unique in the sense that he's very open about his emotions, not just with himself, but with everyone else as well. And while people may play it up from time to time, I won't lie, That motherfucker do be crying, I'm not even gonna lie to you, but not nearly as much as some would leave you to believe. Still, it is made clear from the start that he's a lot more emotionally available than your average shonen anime protagonist, and frankly, that's why I think he works so well as a character. Deku is many things, but above all else, he is genuine. Everything he does within the events of My Hero Academia, he does them because he is a deeply compassionate guy with strong convictions, something which he owes to his obsession with All Might growing up, which is something else I'd like to bring attention to. Because Deku, despite all of the bullshit he has to go through throughout the entire events of My Hero Academia, including but not limited to getting shanked by Magic Johnson if he was a Ninja Turtle, almost dying to a sociopathic great value Akatsuki Takeshi of Kengan, taking down God's strongest League of Legends fan, and much, much more. He's still a straight up child, and he was like 16 at the absolute oldest by the time the war arc came to a close. And you know what I was doing at his age? Questioning my gender identity and RPing on Discord with a bunch of gay loser nerds instead of doing anything actually productive. That is to say, Deku, much like pretty much every other shonen anime protagonist to ever exist, had to grow up fast. And while I'm not saying that any of us had to box up a Yakuza boss who could explode people just by touching them before finishing Algebra 2, we all know the feeling, right? That feeling of being thrown into something you weren't nearly prepared enough for and having to stumble your way through it all because it feels like your entire existence depends on it. You know why? Because, like I said earlier, the genre is called shonen for a reason. Like a lot, and I mean a lot of shonen, my hero is set in a high school, which, considering the target demographic here, helps ground things a little and make Deku more relatable, as is the case with other protagonists like Yuji Itadori and, I don't know, Rina Kumura. This tactic isn't exactly new by any stretch of the definition. People rallying about their teenage years and how much they sucked ass is a universal experience, but hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And actually, that reason is something I made an entire video about. A video that kind of flopped if you're being real, but hey, them's the bricks. Though I will say, if you want a more in depth look on this next topic I'm about to talk about once I'm done, go ahead and check that out if you will. But with all that said, what is that reason to begin with? Projection. It's just straight projection. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Projection, of course, as per last time, meaning the projection of traits of oneself onto something else, or the projection of traits of someone else onto oneself. Or, in even simpler terms, projection is pointing at the fictional character, or sometimes even the real person, going, damn, he just like me for real. And like I said back then, when you don't have too many people to look up to, you start looking for guidance anywhere you can. And unfortunately, in my case, it would be cartoons that will go on to irreparably alter my brain chemistry. But in Midoriya's case, it will be the man of the hour, All Might, who is not only one of my favorite characters of My Hero Academia, but one of my favorite characters from all fiction as a whole. But in the case of Deku and All Might, I think that My Hero Academia captures that feeling of projection really well in the real, well, if he can do it, why can't I kind of way. Like many idiot children with intense hyperfixations, Deku got hooked on superheroes back in preschool because he thought they were really cool and really strong and made him want to be a better person. And of course, while he's a big fan of them in general, Big Body All Might as the number one pro hero in the setting Superman analog was always Deku's favorite. Eventually, the two of them would go on to actually meet. All Might sees something in Midoriya and chooses him as the next successor to One for All. But it wasn't until way later that we found out what All Might exactly saw in him to begin with. I'm not talking about Deku being kind, empathetic, and just genuinely having that dog in him. All Might, no, Toshinori Yagi saw more than that in Midoriya. He also saw himself. Ever since childhood, Toshinori had a dream of simply becoming that guy. A person that people could look up to whenever things got dire. The main problem being that, much like Midoriya, he came out quirkless. Or rather, he was, up until his mentor, Nana Shimura, came around and made him the next successor to One for All, and much like Deku, Toshinori would go deeply respect and admire his mentor to the point where he lost one of his lungs trying to put All Might in the dirt for killing her. It's because of this love, this reverence for Shimura, alongside his dream to become a person everyone can look up to in the time of need, he was able to become the number one hero. And inadvertently, that love, that desire to do right and pay the respects to the people that made him, Toshinori was able to light that spark of Midoriya to get him to pursue his dream of becoming a hero, despite being born quirkless, eventually resulting in the permanent defeat of All For One. While it is true the series focuses a lot on what it means to be a hero, I feel like My Hero Academia focuses on two things I think a lot of people overlook. How things like trauma and pain can continue to linger on if left unaddressed, and paying respect to the people you love and your inspirations while still striving to be your own person or carrying on the will of those who came before you. Or, in other words, My Hero Academia does an amazing job of showing what it means to acknowledge the past and the ways people often go about it. Either you can confront your problems and continue to better yourself in spite of them, or you don't. You get trapped underneath the weight of your problems, remaining stuck in a cycle of pain, misery, and ultimately self destruction. Of course, whether or not a person can or can't move on depends on the wide variety of factors, both personal and systemic, which is something else My Hero touches upon, but I'll save that for the actual video, because again, if y'all think I'm yapping now, just wait till the anime is over. I promise you, I am nowhere close to finished. But all this talk does bring me back to one of my previous points: hype. I think at this point we're all well aware that anime and manga are both mediums rife for things that are by all means, and I say this out of love, respect, and adoration, bullshit. And I mean complete and total bullshit. And I say this not as in it's unfair or illogical, although anime bullshit can be both of those things. I mean bullshit as in unrealistic by our standards at least. Because you see, like I've said before, something being logical and something being realistic are two completely different things. Realism being the state of something adhering to how things are in real life, and logic meaning that within the context in which something exists, it makes sense. If you've taken a look at the video game landscape these days, you've probably often seen companies remake old games to pursue to making them look better by modern standards, using graphical fidelity as a substitute for anything of actual substance. In essence, you could call it form over function in its purest form. Pun somewhat intended. Yeah, you can see the pores in this guy's face now, but it's really just the same game with nothing else attached, so what's the point of buying it? Tangents aside, why is this important? You see, on the outside, one could make the claim that many shonen anime and manga are just that, form over function, because, listen, I'm not gonna lie to you, as much as I love Dragon Ball and Jujutsu Kaisen, let's be real here, it seems like a whole lot of the fan bases these days don't watch either of these shows just for the plot. And really, you can say the same about a lot of series, which is a real shame because that hype is one of the greatest draws of not just any anime or manga, but really any creative medium in general. In that excitement regarding a fight scene or any other dramatic moment, many people forget to look deeper and determine the character or an entire story's worth based upon how well they live up to the expectations of the audience rather than how well they serve the actual narrative. And now, with the ever growing popularity of platforms like Twitter and TikTok, this problem has only been exacerbated because now, unlike the old days, you had to go see something for yourself to get an opinion. What we have is a steadily growing group of people who get everything they know about a series from an amalgamation of TikToks, Phonk edits, AMVs, and whatever message the most popular agenda shitposts that they want them to believe. And this happens because the hype works as intended. Like I said earlier, hype is used as a tool to grab the attention of the audience to keep them engaged, while also doing the same thing to those outside of the audience to get them engaged with a series so they can actually go and check it out when they get the time. But one of the unforeseen consequences of the internet is that now people can skip straight to the hype without having experienced any of the requisite knowledge that makes sense. Because of this, what you get are fans of a piece of media that instead of choosing to check out the entire things themselves, choose to continue to experience it through cultural osmosis rather than do so directly, resulting in them missing much of the nuance and subtle details of the original story. Now, I'm not gonna claim this is the exact reason why fans of shows like Dragon Ball, Jujutsu Kaisen, and One Piece can't read, but all I'm saying is you don't see this happening with Bleach now, do you? Many people like to explain away this ever-growing phenomenon of people who miss the themes or context of a story up to a lack of media literacy or reading comprehension, but I'd like to introduce another possible cause. You see, it's not that these motherfuckers can't read, it's that they actively choose not to. Why exactly this is can be chalked up to a variety of different factors, but going off of what I've seen both online and in person, the most common one I've come into contact with is that they see something that's popular and want to engage with it, but they don't know how. So, in order to feel included, what they do is they learn as much as they can secondhand to a point where they no longer feel as if it's necessary to experience it firsthand. Now, whether or not this happens underneath a positive connotation is on an entirely case by case basis, as seen by people who love Jujutsu Kaisen or insert any other anime here, but are really only in it for the fights and the yaoi. Or, on the flip side, whether you have it people who haven't seen something but dislike it due to the fan base or by hearing about it through someone who doesn't like it themselves. For example, One Piece. I love One Piece. I grew up watching One Piece, and had it not been for that, I probably would have never caught up because, like, pacing's all over the damn place, and I'm sure those of you in the audience who have seen it would agree. However, consider the following. Do you actually think that people who dug on One Piece just for it being long have actually tried to watch or read it in length? Or the people who say Naruto's never had to work for anything in his life, for example? Like, did Rock Lee get bitched by the plot and should have done more? Yeah, and dare I say, he's an even harder worker than Naruto Ninja Jesus Uzumaki himself. But, like, we watch the same show, right? Sure, Naruto had a lot going on for him in terms of raw talent, but to say he never had to work for anything is a little disingenuous. Even with all of his talent, he was still having to compete with Sasuke pretty consistently throughout the entire original series and Shippuden. Granted, Sasuke's also kind of bullshit as far as raw talent goes, but point being, they both had to try to get there. While it is true that they're both incredibly gifted, what makes characters like Naruto and Sasuke special is the fact they don't let that make them complacent and they still actively try to find ways to change and grow. And as far as the argument that Naruto didn't have it that bad growing up, I don't know, man. Would you let your kid hang around the local hooligan who also happens to be sharing a body with a fox demon? Yeah, that's what I thought. And that's the biggest misconception I see about Naruto Uzumaki as a character. His struggles aren't meant to be physical, they're supposed to be emotional. They're meant to illustrate how he chooses to see the best in himself and others because that tiny bit of kindness could go a long way in the future. Now, would I have made lead the protagonist instead? I'm not gonna hold you. Yeah, probably, but you wanna know why? The reason why is really simple. You see, he's just that hype of a character. Now, is he a little basic? Yeah, but it's that simplicity makes him so appealing as a character. You see, Lee is a character who fits an archetype that I've come to call the deep puddle. Now, I've talked about this a lot, and hell is even the topic of my first video, but for those of you who did miss it, let me put you on the law of conservation and coolness. Basically, the less something tries to be cool, the cooler that thing ends up being if it ends up actually being cool. And conversely, the harder something tries to be cool, the lamer it seems that people don't end up liking it. In this regard, you can liken characters to bodies of water. Their abilities, past, and whatever else have you being how far the water is spread, and the personality and motivations being how deep that water is. For example, a character that's all style and no substance can be called a shallow ocean. They might have a lot going on for them outwardly, but in the end, there's only so much you can do until things start to bleed together. A character that's all substance and no style, on the other hand, is a deep puddle. It might not look like much, but on the other hand, there's no telling how deep that hole is going to go. Now, this isn't to say that Rock Lee is a sauceless character. Quite the opposite, actually. There's a reason why so many people love him despite losing almost every single fight he's been in. Sure, Rock Lee might be a potential man, but god damn it, he's my potential man. And besides, at least he got Guy Sensei to pick up the slack for him. And evidently, that's not too unpopular to take. As per Stupid Eye Patch Wolf in that one FD Signifier vid, which admittedly did partially inspire me to make this video to begin with, one of the main reasons why anime is so popular amongst the younger audience is that it does an amazing job at tapping into the id, a person's raw, unfiltered emotional wants. And when come out of hype, another tool that's also designed to tap into a person's id, you already have a pretty good shot at finding an audience. I can try and rationalize the 16 ways of Sunday, but in the end, it's only so much I can say. After a certain point, you just gotta sit down and go, okay, that shit was raw. And that's okay, dare I say, sometimes that's a good thing, but that shouldn't be the end goal of all media. If I wanted pure hype, I'd down a couple of Red Bulls, hop on third strike, and play a couple of rounds of Akuma or something, but sometimes a bitch wants a little bit of substance to wash it all down, you know? Hype, much like pretty much everything else I yacked about on this channel, is nothing more than another tool that writers have at their disposal, and while I can't say that hype makes anything worse, what I can say is that hype can't make anything better if there's nothing to hype up to begin with. But I won't deny and say I'm not a sucker for it either. Like I said earlier, anime excels at taking concepts and pushing them to the absolute extremes in order to fuel the emotional stakes. And in order for those stakes to make sense, they need to have something to ground themselves in, something to project onto, background characters, supporting casts, protagonists. I would love to go on another yap session about the nature of projecting onto fictional characters, but unfortunately, I can't say anything here that I haven't said in my actual video about that, so hey, all I'm saying is run up my numbers again, I might run it back. But in all seriousness, I think the biggest thing about shonen anime protagonists that sets them apart from the protagonists of other stories comes from the exaggerated nature of anime and manga itself. Do I have Goku's work ethic? Come on, just take a look at my upload schedule. That's not even a question. I've been going through it. However, it is something I have been working on. In that same video by FD Signify I mentioned earlier, Mr. Wolf talked about relating more to Vegeta than he did Goku, and to be completely honest, I kinda agree. I relate to that feeling of struggling to prove your worth as a person, putting all of your faith into yourself and yourself alone, if you single mindedly chase after your ambitions because they're yours and yours alone. And after a certain point, they might be all you have left, but at the same time, I think that's why Goku works better as a protagonist. There's this one line from Baki I've really come to appreciate as of late, and as per usual, I might talk about that in its own video, but as of right now, I think that this line specific fits Vegeta and Goku's relationship perfectly. A man who works hard will never defeat a man who enjoys himself. Again, if you watch the projection video, I maintain that Vegeta was a pretty big part of me forming an actual personality, and in terms of long-term impact, he still probably beats Goku. But as I try and put more and more passion into this content creation thing, and really any other creative endeavor of mine, I've come to realize just how much I appreciate the mindset of characters like Goku. Unlike Vegeta, Goku doesn't fight because he wants to be the strongest, he fights because he wants to be stronger. Goku does what he does because he loves it, and while it does come back to bite him in the ass from time to time, it's clear that everything he does comes from a place of genuine care or enjoyment or whatever else you want to call it. He may not always win, but he does make it a point to learn something about himself and the people he fights while continuing to grow in the process. Goku isn't concerned with surpassing anyone but himself, but that's the beautiful thing about it. It's that desire for self improvement for self improvement's sake that makes Goku work. And in that regard, he's very similar to Deku. Deku might love All Might and superheroes as a whole, but in the end, he's still doing it for the love of the game. Deku does what he does for the enjoyment of helping people, and even after losing his powers, he continued to do what he did and help people pursue the dream he once had by becoming a teacher. Then, he got an Iron Man suit, so he got to continue boxing the villains, so it kind of all works out in the end. But mind you, he got that suit because of the connections he made with the people in Class 1A, who knew how much this stream events meant to him. And because of this, you could argue that Goku and Deku are similar to Luffy, or Itadori, or Mob, or even Okuryun if you kind of squint. Their personalities, designs, and backstories all might differ, but in the end, the result taps into the same base emotion for the same reason. You look at the struggles of these characters and the obstacles they overcome, and you take the emotional journeys they go through and the lessons they learn, and then you start applying them to your own life. I might not be Goku, Deku, or fuck even Okaryun, but I do think the world would be a little nicer if we were all a little more like them. And hey, if that's all it takes to make someone else happier, why not be someone else's Goku, even if that someone else is really just yourself? Yeah, but in any case, you can probably see why this took so long, because oh boy, I had a lot to say, and I don't even know if any of it all made sense, but it's out there now, and I had fun making it, so, whatever. I guess what I'm trying to say is thanks a lot for the support. It has been kind of troubling lately, but hey, didn't think I'd make it this far, so you know how it is. Don't have much else to say though, so above all else, just thank you for letting me waste your time. Thank you for coming, thank you for staying, and thank you for watching the show. Take care of yourself. Peace.